I apologize if the review for this figure is a month late. I decided to wait till the beginning of October to do this review because he fits with the season of Halloween. And for this month, I decided that every figure review that I put up will review a figure, whether it's from DC or any other line that I follow. That figure will be of some kind of monstrosity that fits the theme of Halloween. Let's just put it that way. So, for this first review of October, we will be looking at none other than Shazam, or Vampire Shazam, as I like to call it, because that's what he is. And this is from DC versus Vampires, which is a run that I've never read before. It is probably just like Deceased. It has its own, it takes place in a different reality where things went wrong. And I had to search up like what the premise is, and I'm just going to read the premise. It basically says, with much of the League temporary off-world, he informs the remaining members of a shocking discovery. The Legion of Doom has been destroyed by vampires, with Lex Luthor as the sole surviving member. I don't know who the he is. This is like the thing that just pops up when you search it up. I'm going to see if it... Let me see if it says... Andrew Bennett, DC's longtime heroic vampire. So that character informs them of this vampire apocalypse or something that's happening. And yeah, I don't know what the story is about. Unfortunately, I don't. I've never read it. And on top of that, you would think that Mcfarlane would at least give a premise to like what the story is, right? With the card, with the bio card that comes with every figure. No, instead, what you get with this card is, let me just show this. It's really funny. You get a nice picture of the art on the box, as you can see in the back over there, and then the back is just a profile of who is Billy Batson, which I might as well read it because this is my only Shazam figure that I have. So for those who don't know who Billy Batson is, possessing the power of the living lightning, Billy Batson is an unlikely hero, a cocky, delinquent foster child constantly grappling with the responsibilities that come with his immense powers as the keeper of magic. Billy is still a teenager, and Shazam is the idealized, grown-up version of him. At times, the responsibility of being the last standard bearer of the Council of Eternity can seem impossible to live up to. However, Billy's foster siblings always have his back, and after a rocky start to their relationship, so does the Justice League. What he lacks in experience, he makes up for in courage, and soon becomes known as Earth's mightiest mortal. So, that's Billy Batson. That's who he is. That's who Billy Batson is. But that doesn't explain a little bit of like the premise to like what the story is about, because in some of the cards they would write like the bio and shorten it and then explain the premise. Not this one. So I'm just gonna assume that the vampires got to Billy, okay, and he got infected or he got bit, so now he's a vampire, and that's it. It's something very simple, nothing complicated. That's all I'm going to assume. And let's just appreciate something really quickly here. Since we have the box, we can see the art even better, and it's bigger. That is a very, very good piece of art. Like, it just looks really cool, right? I like the way that came out. So, there's that. Accessories. So, when it comes to accessories for this figure, I don't remember, but I could be wrong. But if you have the original Shazam that was a Walmart exclusive, that was also based off the comic book, that used this body mold, did that one come with lightning pieces? I think that one did. This one does not have any lightning effects, which I wonder why. A certain Max Mercury has blue lightning that I could probably put on the Shazam, right? So Instead, the only two accessories that you get outside of your basic stand and card is fist hands. I mean, that's cool and all, but he's a vampire, and vampires are supposed to, be scary and terrifying. This is why these hands fit better, right? I mean, I'm going to keep them with these hands, the claw hands, because that's just cool. And let's look at the aesthetics now of this figure. So, this hand is covered in blood, and what I like about this hand a lot is that if you have the other vampire figure, the Nightwing, which I don't have, Nightwing came with a heart accessory, like he ripped the heart out of somebody. Okay, he has that as an accessory, and you can put that heart on this hand, and it would work too, right? So it just shows the brutality of like the situation they're dealing with, and then on top of that, you have blood stains on his like logo, and then for his face, which I have to zoom out, his face also has blood. Like there is blood going down his teeth, like his mouth, and I just like that so much. So the vampire spookiness to this figure is all there, right? And it is just funny that this is my first Shazam figure, because I would have loved to have a normal one too, but this is also another thing that I love about Mcfarlane. Like I said, taking oddball designs and making them into figures. If you looked in the past, was there any vampire figures like related to these characters? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know the long history of what has been made into figures. But I'm just saying, if they've never made vampire figures of like DC characters in some vampiric form, I'm glad that's happening now. If they done it before, then it's something new. But as for this line, I just like that they're doing this. But the only thing I don't like about this is the fact that these are all Walmart exclusives. I wish these were not Walmart exclusives, so they're more accessible to anyone who likes vampires, right? Figure mold is nothing new. This is a old body that has been used, I believe, a couple times now. Black Adam from the Endless Winter Wave uses this body. The King Shazam figure uses this body. And then, of course, the Billy Batson Shazam that came out as a Walmart exclusive also uses body. So this is nothing new. However, this body is pretty stiff in terms of articulation in some areas. It can be very tight. So that's something I will say. And outside of that, there's not a lot of things going on, right? I mean, the cape is pretty standard. It's literally just one color. There's no shading or texturing going on this cape, so there's that. And yeah, Vampire Shazam. And let's take a look at articulation, because this is what we always do after aesthetics. So for articulation, you have your standard double joint. This one is kind of not trying to work with me because this figure is still new. So let's try the other arm. Let me see if I can do this. There we go. It's interesting how this works, because if you can get this looser, it could work both ways. But this figure is still new, so it's still tight. The swivel on the shoulders are really tight, so it's not, there's friction right there, but it's not working like crazy. You could technically swivel it even more. As for his waist articulation, it's really tight. Okay, like my copy is really tight right now because he's new. So, but he should be able to do the usual rocking back side to side, and also leaning back. If you want to lean forward, that's not happening because there is no ab crunch present on that front side. And another part that I forgot to bring up, his arms can go back and forth, but because of the cape, it has to do that all the time, right? And then his legs. You're not going to kick out anything with that leg. You're not kicking anything out with this leg. This leg is, even though this is supposed like a soft piece, it's not as soft as what I shown in the Mr. Freeze video. So let me just bring that in as an example. That Mr. Freeze video from a little bit ago, I showed how good that leg can kick out. Yeah, that's pretty good. Like, because the piece is softer. So it has the gib, as we like to say. But this one does not have the gib. So it only kicks out like that high, right? And then of course he also has double jointed knees, but they're not a pretty thing to look at. And so that's also very limiting. And then on top of that, he also has your usual feet articulation with the peg, so it could rock side to side, toe articulation. So standard articulation as usual. There's nothing crazy going on with that. So it will get the job done as usual. Now, as for his hands, if you want to swap one of his hands, all you have to do is just take it off this ball joint. And hopefully I can show this on camera. All you have to do, there you go. So if you want him to have one fist hand in there, then you can have it. Now for his head articulation, I don't know if I broke something because when I took a photo, I leaned him back. Maybe he does have neck articulation. So besides like the head, right, moving or looking up and down, you see how his neck can move and tilt? I don't know if that's supposed to happen. It was tight before and then I loosened it. Maybe there is articulation with the neck. I don't know. I'm not too sure. But he can look up, kinda. He can't really look down. So his head is kind of limiting in what it can do. It can still do a side to side and all that. But yeah, you're not going to get much looking up with this head sculpt. And that neck problem, I mean, it's not broken. It's still in there. So maybe it is an articulation point that I'm not aware of, like what it can do. So that's just something I wanted to point out with his head articulation, right? So now let me see if I can get him to stand. And these vampire figures come out, I believe, like every year. They don't release them like consistently. The last one that came out was the Robin and the Nightwing, which was a little bit ago. I didn't get either of them. So the only other one I can compare this guy to is, of course, the Hal Jordan, which was in the photo I shared. So I only have two of these guys, and I'm gonna do a video on the Hal Jordan as well. I think the Hal Jordan one came out good. I remember when they announced this vampire Hal Jordan, I was just like, not again, because at the time I didn't really like the whole vampire thing until I started to look into it more. And when the Hal Jordan figure came out, that changed my mind right away. I mean, yeah, just this is probably the best one they made because it just looks cool. So side to side, they look really good next to each other. If I had a couple more other vampire figures from this whole DC versus vampires, that would be cool. So if they ever do make a Wonder Woman one, which I don't know if there is a vampire Wonder Woman in the story, definitely going to hunt for that. So, and with that, that will wrap up the review on this Shazam and be the first of the Monster Team reviews to come. There's not really much else I want to talk about with this figure. I mean, aesthetically, it looks cool, right? But that's it. Um, so, with that, I hope you enjoyed this review. And I'll see you in the next Monster Team review for the month.